Hello, MotoAmerica fans. Welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. We're doing things a little bit different this week and today. So we're actually recording this on a Sunday or on Sunday, May 7th. So we normally try to do these just for you guys to know. We usually try to shoot for Thursdays, Fridays, usually in the morning. It's always early for Paul on the East Coast and a little bit midday for me with the 3-hour difference. But we're doing it on Sunday, and it's kind of mid-ish day for Paul out on the West Coast, and he's in Southern California. Paul Carruthers, our communications manager, and me, Sean Bice. I'm actually coming to you guys from Northern New York, which is where I grew up, a little town called DePoyster, New York. That's about a couple hours north of Syracuse, and the frozen tundra is unfrozen right now. So we got a sunny day up here. It's actually pretty nice, and I'm up here visiting my parents, which is where I grew up. So I'm in my boyhood home right now, and getting ready to head back down to Ohio. But we timed it out so we could kind of make this happen now. But Paul's like I said, Paul's in Southern California. It's a Sunday for him. Paul does a lot of bike riding. Have you pedaled today, Paul?
No, I did a pretty good one yesterday and figured today I might not have time or whatever. I didn't want to rush through it. So I'll either go this afternoon or just give it a miss and go at some point tomorrow. But it's a nice sunny day here. It's starting to feel a little bit like spring because we've had so much rain, and I know people outside of California just think we're a bunch of whiners, but it has been a little different for us in that we've gotten a lot of what we would refer to as bad weather. So it's nice to have a nice spring day here, and yeah, everything's good. We're coming up hot and heavy here on our second round at Barber Motorsports Park. I'm looking forward to that. It'll come here before we know it, and that's always it's always one of my favorites, and I can pretty much guarantee it's our guest's favorite place to race motorcycles because of obvious reasons that you'll find out here shortly. But yeah, I'm good to go. It's a Sunday morning, and I'm pumped to be talking to you from that must be a really old house if you were a child there.
Yeah, and it's a lot older than me. This is kind of an interesting story. So my grandmother used to teach. It used to be a schoolhouse, and my grandmother used to teach school here. It was a one-room schoolhouse, and my mom went to school here up until I think 8th grade, and then she ended up going to a school that I later went to, a central school in this area. But it's literally a schoolhouse that my dad bought and remodeled into a house in about 1965. So there's a section in the back of the house where there's actually still some blackboard left from the one-room schoolhouse. But yeah, it's kind of like a little house on the prairie up here a little bit. So
it's crazy because in California we absolutely have nothing that's very old.
Right.
I mean, comparatively speaking, there's just not any structures that are that old. There's missions and stuff that the Spanish built when they first settled here, but it's like everything else just seems almost brand new, and compared to back there. So
yeah, and Paul, it's funny for you having traveled around Europe with GP with your dad and everything. I mean, you went to places where it's crazy how old things are over in Europe and that part of the country, that part of the world.
Yeah, and sometimes when I'm back east, it kind of reminds me of Europe and London and stuff like that, just because you see so much more brick out here. Brick doesn't really exist unless it's your fireplace. Everything else is stucco and things like that. So it always reminds me of that when I head back your direction, because the architecture and stuff is very similar, because that's obviously where they started. So
yeah, so let's bring our guest on. So the reason we're coming to you guys from on a Sunday is because I think we've talked to you guys before about one of the unique things about our form of racing is that there are a few riders who make a living in racing, but a lot of them make a living outside so that they can go racing. They have jobs in order to kind of put together programs so that they can chase their dream of racing. And Gabriel Da Silva is one of them. Gabriel joined our series a couple of years ago. I think I saw him for the first time at VIR, and he's a soft-spoken, really nice young guy. And I instantly liked him. He actually won the Nicky Hayden AMA Road Race Horizon Award back in 2020, and he raced with us in 2021. and he was in Supersport at the time. And if you guys remember, we went to Barber Motorsports Park at the end of that year, and we had that crazy weekend with all the rain. And you've probably seen a lot of our social media stuff showing, Matthew Skoltz sliding down the track and how many guys wiped out. Well, it turned out in the there were two Supersport races that weekend, but the final Supersport race of that weekend on Sunday in that rain, and when we get Gabriel on, he can help me with some of these details, but he ended up winning the race. It was a rain race for sure. He won the race, and Sean Dillon Kelly and Sam Lockoff were also on the podium. And I think Gabriel, by virtue of living in Florida, probably knows SDK pretty well. So they were embracing quite a bit. It seemed like SDK was pretty excited to have Gabi up there. So, but then we don't know what happened to him last year. I mean, we were all excited about that win, and then, the entry list came out for the following year, and we didn't see anything about what he was up to. So, but then lo and behold, I had seen some inklings this year that he was going to be racing, and I kind of let the cat out of the bag when I shouldn't have, but he and I talked, and it turns out he is actually going to make his debut in Stock 1000 and Superbike Cup at Barber Motorsports Park, the site of where he won that race. And so he'll be with us as of this next round. And it's a pretty cool program. So we wanted to get Gabriel on to talk about it, but we also want him to kind of announce what this whole deal is. So welcome to the podcast, Gabriel Da Silva. It's great to have you on. We're excited to have you back again. Tell us about your situation for this year, what the name of the team is, who the sponsors are, and all that good stuff.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to announce I will be back and we'll be racing this year for the remaining of the season. The name of the team will be Steel Commander Racing Team, with our sponsor Steel Commander Corp. I'm really glad and really happy with the way we were able to get everything and to be racing with them this year. And yeah, I'm excited to get back to Barber. It was it's actually one of my favorite tracks that I've ever been at. It was one of the tracks it was one of my first, let's say, big tracks that I've ridden back with Wira, and I've gone there quite a bit growing up, riding with them at the GNFs and everything. So I was really excited to get my first run in Supersport over there and to be going back there this year, starting my year off at Barber.
So Gabriel, you don't have to give away your trade secrets on how you landed this awesome sponsor, who I understand, and from talking to them myself, and getting this announcement ready, is the fact that they have a huge passion for sport bikes. Will Wright, the marketing guy, said that Sean Fisher, the owner, I guess, of the company, is very into motorcycles, and their business is really cool. If you guys go to their website, it's steelcommander.com, steelcommandercorp.com. You look at it, and anybody that's within the sound of our voice on this podcast will absolutely love and appreciate the stuff that these guys make. They fabricate steel buildings for any kind of use you can imagine, whether it's horses, cattle, motorcycles, garages. They even have these things called barn dominiums, which are kind of a barn that you can raise livestock or have livestock in, and also live in one end of it. It's kind of a throwback to the old pajama barns of the New England era, when people had their barns connected to the house. So they called them pajama barns because you could get up in the morning and in your pajamas go to the barn and milk the cows. Well, these barn dominiums allow you to do it too. And these are steel structures that are very well designed, very well built, and they have them all over the country. And they got a lot of selections they can go from. So it's a really, really interesting industry that these guys are involved in. And, like I said, Gabriel, don't give away your connection and how you got to be with them, but sounds like you landed a sponsor who's got some passion for what you do and what we do. So, really congratulations on that. Tell us about it.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, Sean, the owner of Steel Commander Corp, he's a great guy, and I met him through motorcycle rallies. He has a couple of bikes now, him and his wife, and they've have a pretty big, I could see from him talking to him when somebody starts to ride and really enjoy it and everything, the way he talks about it and the way he just says, I mean, riding is one of those things that you could go on there and be fully focused and like get your mind out of everything. So it's really cool to have somebody that's passionate about motorcycles like that, and somebody that's interested in the sport and supporting the sport. And like you're saying, their company is really cool. They do some really cool buildings, some steel buildings, and they showed me a lot of the stuff they did, and I gotta say I was really impressed. And one of the things they were saying was just how a lot of the people in our industry that have motorcycles and not just bikes, but even cars and all that, a lot of them have or need garages and everything, and how they could cater to that really well. And it did seem like a great fit, and I'm really happy we met them and everything. And Sean was really really happy and excited for this project. And I'm excited to get the project going and started at Barber. I think it's going to be a really cool year for us. And yeah, I'm really excited for everything to get started.
Before we jump forward to the upcoming season, or what will be your first season in that class, let's go back a little bit to we'll go back to Barber again and that victory you had in the rain. There's people that say, and I always wonder about this. People always say, oh, it doesn't really count because the guy won in the rain. Yet the rain is probably the hardest time to actually win, although it does give guys like yourself an opportunity to do something maybe you couldn't have done on that day in the dry. But did you surprise yourself with that win, or did you like see the heavens open up and go, okay, this is my chance. I got nothing to lose. I can really do this.
Well, like you said, the rain is always really good for especially us as privateers to equalize everything and equipment and teams and everything for the rider to go and try to show what they could do. And I wasn't really surprised just because I knew I could be up there and win races and get podiums in that Supersport class that year. Actually, in the beginning of VIR, we had some pretty good pace. It was my first time on the new Gen R6. My first time in MotoAmerica, my first time on the Dunlop tires. I'd always had been running Pirellis, and so it was a big learning curve for me. And that weekend, I unfortunately had some really bad arm pump issues starting from Friday, so I couldn't really ride the way I would have liked to. And if you go back and see our lap times from race 2, we actually had the pace of the front of the top 4 or 5 guys there, but I just didn't have the whole race rhythm. So from the beginning, from my first round and everything, I saw we could be up front and battle them. And I'd come from club racing with even Stefano Mesa, who was running up front a lot of the races, and we'd always have some great battles. So I knew we had the potential and everything to be there. We just couldn't quite get it together that year, and we didn't do the full season. So the rounds we went to, we ended up having some issues here and there. It's like racing, and the whole year it was just me and my dad really. So we were learning a lot of things every round and trying to make everything happen. So we've had a bit of bad luck during that time, but when we got to Barber, I was excited because it was like really the first track that I was going to ride at that I knew and had previously been at. And unfortunately, we just had a bit of a setup issue and some tire issues on Friday, so we couldn't quite get the qualifying, and then it rained. But when it rained, we actually ended up with the same setup there in the rain, and then I was really comfortable off the bat, and we didn't have any more of those issues that we were having. And from the start, I was like, all right, I'm going to take this really easy, calm, I wasn't going to push anything because I didn't want to have any crashes or anything like that, so we could repair the bike. And from the Q2, which was our first rain session, we were pretty quick, and I was like, okay, we could have a really good Saturday and Sunday, which we had rain all weekend. It was really crazy rain that weekend. And in the first race, I actually had some good rhythm. We were, I think, in 4th or 3rd at one point before that red flag. Then we had the red flag, we had the restart, and I ended up with the front group there in the first lap. But unfortunately, I think it was CJ LaRoche had gone down right in front of me, which I had ran off the track to avoid him. And I fell back all the way to like 16th. And from then I had to catch up again, and we only had like 5 laps back left. And I was actually able to make my way back up to 4th by the last lap. So I saw I had really good pace and could go with the front guys. Just, it seemed like it was my year. I just had a lot of bad luck or bad situations that I got into where I couldn't quite show what I was capable of. But then Sunday came and we ended up getting really good warm up. I felt really confident, and I was like, man, today's the day, you know. And had a great start. Got there, and in the rain, I've always noticed, you know, just if I take the first couple laps, everything really easy. But unfortunately, the front guys, Stefano and Sean, had really put up a gap on us. And when I finally got by lock off and we were there, and I was like, all right, let me start trying to make my way back to them and nice and calm. I just got into a really nice rhythm, was able to catch up. Unfortunately, Stefano went down. So when he did, I was like, all right, I got a solid podium now. You know, if anything happens, I'm in a podium position. So that's really cool. But I knew I could catch up and get the win. I knew I had pace and I wasn't overriding. Like I was really at like a 70%, 80% on my riding. I was taking everything really easy and it was very comfortable. So I ended up just keeping that pace and was able to catch up. And then the rain started really just pouring at those final 5 laps. And I was like, they could possibly red flag this. So let me try to get by and lead. If anything happens, I'm in the front, and I was able to get by, led the final laps. I knew Sean was going to try something in that last lap, so I started blocking the door on a couple of the first turns, turn 5 and turn 1, turn 5. And once we got back to that the little drop, I knew it was going to be there. And when I went by, we had a big puddle there. We were always hydroplaning. And as soon as I went by there, I looked to the right where we had the TV, and I saw him pull to the side. I was like, all right, this is going to be here. And I tried to keep the line closed, but, you know, I couldn't stay too close there. So I opened it up and we went, and he came by. I just went through the outside going up to get some more momentum. And as I went up, when we were right beside him, I was coming by, I saw him. I saw the rear coming around, he high side, and I was like, oh, man. And I was like, oh, please let me not run off track or crash. And because I had some flashbacks from Saturday, I was like, oh, man. But I was able to get around that and finish the race, and it was really awesome. It was a great victory for me and my dad. I mean, we had worked really hard that year. My dad sacrificed a lot so we can make it to all the rounds, and to get there and just me and my pops on a van and come out with a national win was really cool, really special for us.
Okay, so you have the race of your life. You win a Supersport National with MotoAmerica. And then how difficult was it to suddenly go from that to like, oh shoot, I'm not even going to be able to race the following season?
Yeah, it was a little tough. Especially after that rain round, we went to the GNF where we were, and we had done some lap times on the dry that would have put us in the front row for at that weekend, lap time wise and everything. So I felt really strong and felt that the next year I could really have a really solid year doing everything. But unfortunately, we just didn't have the funds and the sponsorship or anything to race, and it was pretty tough. I couldn't quite make it out to any of the races, which sucked because I felt like I was in a really good place mentally, physically, with my riding and everything. But I had to end up getting a job and living a little bit of that normal life, let's call it, it was pretty cool. I learned a lot in that time for sure, and got a lot stronger. My relationship with God got a lot better too, and I learned a lot that this past year, 2022, I learned a lot. I didn't get to be on the bike as much as I would have liked. But in the end, I think it was good for me to have a good mental reset and learn the important things in life and all that. And we did have a couple of times where we went out on track and did really well. And we're really strong. So I knew I didn't lose my ability yet. So I was happy with that, but didn't quite get to be out there as consistently as I would have liked.
It's funny, Gabriel. So we had a conversation because, and you were so good about it, by the way. But I hadn't seen some of the entries early on, and I saw that some of the riders weren't, some of the teams, particularly, well, I won't say who it was, but some of them weren't announcing their program for the year, and it was driving me nuts because I wanted to get some news out. And your name was on there for actually starting to race at Road Atlanta, and they had you down as being on an R1, and it was Da Silva Racing. Well, now we find out that as of today, it's Steel Commander racing, the Steel Commander racing team. And then there was another phase of that where it was like, oh wait, he was on an R6 when he raced in 21. He's actually not on an R1 in Stock 1000 in Superbike Cup this year. He's going to be on a brand new ZX-10R, which is an absolute weapon in any way, but certainly in Stock 1000, we've seen, obviously your good friend, good buddy Stefano Mesa wins races on it, and Andrew Lee won 2 championships, and the bike is very strong motorcycle as a leader bike. I guess so. You've got a 20, I believe it's a 2023, although you can let us know what it is, but it's ZX-10R. Was that a decision that you made? Wanted to get that bike, and what were the reasons behind making that choice?
Yeah, I have a R1, and that's what I was riding when I had the R6 and everything. I was using the R1 as practice and doing some club racing with it. But unfortunately we've had a few issues with getting the bike to run right and getting some, I'm going to say, some more support with it. Just because there's not a lot of people running that bike in the stock 1000 form.
Mm-hmm.
And it runs a little with the crossplane engine. It's a little bit different power delivery and everything than the R6. Even though ergonomically it's almost the same thing, which is really interesting. And when I sat on it, I was like, man, this just feels like an R6. It's a little bit heavier, a lot more power, but it feels like an R6. So I had seen that the Kawasaki was obviously a very competitive bike in Stock 1000. A lot of people were on it. There was more support, and I had the opportunity to ride one from a friend of mine, Alex Nieves, and here in South Florida at a track day about a month ago. And when I rode it, I was like, I really liked the bike's characteristic. It was a little bit different ergonomically, but it seemed like it fit me a little bit better. I liked the power delivery for it, and we saw it was a very competitive bike. Obviously, like you said, Stefano had some great results with it. Andrew Lee, a lot of people have been really competitive with it. Stock 1000, and it seemed like the only other option, or it seemed like a very solid option from looking at everything. So we decided to go ahead with that and get with that bike. And about the whole thing at the entry before, we were going to try to at least make Road Atlanta, even on the R1, to try to get some points and everything. But unfortunately we couldn't get everything finished and ready in time. So we couldn't quite make that first round. So now we'll be going to the second round for the first time racing this bike and everything. And I'm still pretty confident with it because we have good people around us and some good support now with it. And I think we'll have some really solid results.
Yes. So this year you talk about your dad. So your dad is obviously involved in your program this year, but do you have additional crew with this Steel Commander racing team, or is it kind of the same program you had before, but now you have a sponsor that can help you run this thing the whole year?
It's gonna be a little bit of both. So with the sponsor, we'll be able to run the whole year. My dad's still gonna be a integral part of the program. Just because we work really well together, and he's very experienced with racing. But we're also gonna have a few people added on to really be able to help us and give us a little bit more technical information and everything when it comes to suspension, electronics. We'll have our mechanic there at the rounds too. So now we're gonna have a lot more of a solid team, more support, so we can actually go out there and so I could focus only on riding, where before I was working on the bike, getting tires, this and that, and I wasn't able to focus so much on my riding. So that's one of the reasons I'm really excited for this year, is I'll be able to focus more and work a lot more on track than have to work a lot more off track to be able to make it to the track.
Yeah, and the podium shot that we'll include in our promotion of this, but the podium shot of you in those RS Tai Chi leathers with the outer the rain suit that you guys have, it's so cool. I mean, and I'm in saying this, I wanted to say, are you going to be wearing Tai Chi again this year?
Yeah, we'll be with Tai Chi again this year. Moto Liberty, Audrey from Moto Liberty has been great to me the last couple of years, and I've actually really liked their suit just from I've used a couple of different brands and everything lately, but ever since I used their suit for the first time, I don't know if, I mean, I'm sure you guys are aware, whenever you get a new suit, it first feels stiff and this, and you have a hard, you need to use it a couple of times so it could break in, but from the bat, I really liked the suit, the movement I had on it, and I had unfortunately tested out a couple of times, and it worked great. It protected me really well, so I'm happy to be on it. And yeah, we did have that rain suit that year, the little rain suit above the leathers, which no one ended up using, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna put it on. I don't want to be getting too wet and damage my suit, but it was pretty cool.
You know, I have to give a shout out to Audrey too, because, you know, Paul and I have known her for a long time, way back to when Danny Walker used to race. Takahito Mori raced for Moto Liberty back in the day, but she's been around a long time, so dedicated to racing. And anybody that ever wears Tai Chi suits, it's always Audrey from Moto Liberty, and it's always a huge amount of loyalty. I know I talked to Josh Hayes about this several years ago. He had changed from a brand that no longer offered the leathers anymore, and he had a choice. He could have gone with whoever he wanted to, and he really evaluated a lot of the suits, and he arrived at choosing Tai Chi just because he liked the fit and what they provided, and he kind of started a relationship with them that's lasted for a while too. But it's funny, to a man, everybody I talk to who's a rider, a Tai Chi rider, Ben Galati or some of the other ones, it's always, yeah, you know, it's Audrey, it's Moto Liberty, and it's there's such a love affair there. So obviously she really helps to keep that relationship going and cultivates it in the riders that she has, and it sounds like that's the case with you as well, Gabi.
Yeah, it really is. She's from the beginning, she was always the one you contact and talk to, and she's always a really nice person and always very supportive, and there, if you have any questions or anything, she's very helpful. And like you said, even Josh Hayes has been using that for, you know, quite a while. So ever since I've seen him and everything, he's always had Taichi on. So with a guy like that wearing it, you could, when I was first getting into it, I was like, no, I could really trust this. And after I started using it and seeing the whole Moto Liberty family and everything, I was really, like you said, there is a loyalty there, that they're great people and they have a great product, and yeah, I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, you know, Gabi, one of the things I'm noticing about you, let's see if anybody's ever told this, and in saying this, I'm going to give away, but this could have been a bit we could do on social media. We could take your voice, a clip of your voice, and a clip of another rider's voice in our paddock, and I wouldn't be able to tell them apart. And I don't know do you know who I'm talking about at all, Gabriel?
I'm not quite sure. No.
You sound to me so much like Max Flinders. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
amazing. I mean, he's British. He's not, you know, you're Brazilian heritage, and you just have that same kind of delivery. And ironically, your father's help is so important to each of you guys' programs. So yeah, you sound, Paul, what do you think? Do you think he sounds like Max a little bit?
It didn't hit me, but
Oh, well, I get weird sometimes. You know how things are. But yeah, I don't know.
I honestly didn't know who you were gonna say. So
Okay, yeah.
but when you said Max Flinders, it probably surprised me more than anybody else you could have said.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when I hear him, I can't really tell them apart, and there's just something in the delivery there. But anyway, yeah, I had to throw that out there. So, but Gabriel, this switch to stock 1000, and not just Kawasaki, and you said you have an R1, so you've been on a leader bike quite a bit, and you know it's still pretty early days for you, at least in MotoAmerica. I know you've done a lot of laps and done a lot of things in amateur racing, but what's the deal with stock 1000? Because it's hugely popular. We have fans that go crazy about it, and I love it too. And it seems like you riders just like to have that horsepower and that speed, and like you said about the R6 to the R1, that's something Garrett Gerloff used to always talk about, as well as Josh Hayes. They always felt like the R6 was, you know, they were very ergonomically the same, but the R1 obviously is so much more power, and the characteristics of the engine are so different. But do you just like to be able to twist the throttle, and you know you got a lot under you? Is that why you've jumped up to stock 1000 already?
Well, to be honest with you, there's a few reasons. So I've been riding I was riding a lot on little bikes since I was very fast, and my strong suit was always corner speed. So when I jumped on an R6 for the first time, I was immediately really quick with it. I felt really comfortable on the bike, but I had to change up my style a little bit as with time, because I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a little bit faster. And I started seeing that, the R6 was, a lit carrying really heavy and really fast corner speed wasn't the best way of riding it at all times. So I had to start to learn how to pick up the bike a bit, brake a little bit harder, and work on those things, right? So it got to a point where I started being really good at picking up the bike and braking really deep. And I think to this day, I'm a very good rider on the brakes and have really worked on the way I corner the bike and all that. And on the R6, um, or the end of 21, I got really good at all that. And I started, even comparing with some of the other riders and the way I was riding out. And on the big bike, also riding it, I'm a very analytical rider. I like to really see um, what makes me go fast or why you go fast, not just go out there, put your head down and go quick. I like to see what I need to do to really go quick. So I like to analyze all this stuff and see the differences in riding style and what works, what doesn't work. So I started to see I was having a little bit more of almost a big bike style. Not quite there. I had I think a perfect balance for the R6, but I knew I could adapt it really well on the 1000. And to be honest, I felt like I wasn't really learning much or learning a lot more on the 600, and I wanted to keep on with my progression as a rider and keep growing and learning. So that's where the 1000 came in, and I was riding it more, learning a lot with that and getting more comfortable. And ultimately, once you first ride it, the power is a big thing. And as you start riding it, you're like, wow, the horsepower on this thing you really love the power of it. It's very different. I mean, it almost felt like a bigger jump on the 600 to 1000 than the 300 to a 600. It was a really big jump to me in power. So I really enjoy that. And as well as, everybody's goal is to get on a super bike or MotoGP and stuff like that, where you are riding these really high horsepower machines. So I wanted to kind of get a head start too on my big bike learning. And once I started riding the 1000 a couple times, I actually saw it. I rode it really well. It fit me a little bit better too, ergonomically. I'm not like a super tall person, but for bikes and in the paddock, I'm a little bit taller than a few people as well. So it was one of those things that fit me better too as a rider. And with my style, I started to see I rode that thing better, and I was able to go really quick on it from the start. And I wanted to get a head start on that because I would like to eventually make the jump up to being on a big bike or hopefully super bike soon. So the stock 1000 seemed like a really solid choice, and I wanted to get a new challenge as well. So that's really the reason for going up to that.
Now, Gabriel, you're not at the point in your racing career yet where you can survive off the money that you make, or at least, yeah, I mean, survive might be a bit rough, but I know you have a job. What is your job away from racing a motorcycle?
So I'm actually a parts guy at a dealership called Barber Motorsports. They've actually helped me out for a while with my career from very early days when I was, like 7 years old or so. My dad's really good friends with all the owners and everything. And last year when I needed to get a job, my dad worked there, so I just hopped on board and started working there. And it's been a great environment. Everybody at Barber Motorsports is really cool, and that's what I do full time. So I work some longer hours too. So I work anywhere from like 10 to 12 hours a day, and then I work out and do all my stuff during the week too. But that's what I do off of that. Obviously with racing, like you said, it is very hard for a lot of people to survive off just the racing until a certain point. So I'm trying to hopefully one day get there so I could just be riding a lot more during the week and all that. But it's really nice to still be a part of motorsports and still be around motorcycles and all types of vehicles outside of racing.
Yeah, and it's also cool that when you ask for Thursday and Friday off, they understand what you're up to, what you're up to.
Yeah, true. So it is cool that everybody over there is very knowledgeable with the racing and bikes itself, and they all love it and watch it. So whenever I need to go out to race for race weekend, everybody understands and more than helpful to make it happen.
So Gabi, I made an assumption, and I think it's right, just from what I could tell from kind of the way things were on the podium celebration, talking about that Supersport win that you had. It sounds like you obviously must know Sean Dillon Kelly pretty well. You mentioned Stefano Mesa. I mean, Sean being from Florida, do you know him quite well? Do you guys hang out or anything? Or
I wouldn't necessarily say we hang out or anything. We actually grew up racing together from very in the beginning when we were like 4 or 5 years old. We were always racing together on the mini bikes for almost a decade or so. Well, I wouldn't say almost a decade or so. It was a little bit less than that. But we spent a lot of time together on track. Obviously down here in Florida, South Florida especially, there's only so much you could do and go to. So most of the weeks and the races we were always there, and we had a bit of a difference in age, but not too much. So we were kind of sort of always in the same class. And eventually he'd always go to the next step or class earlier than me. But we were riding together for quite a while. So that's how we know each other. And for a little bit, we hadn't raced each other or ridden with each other for a while. So MotoAmerica was actually the first time back riding together after a few years. So that was cool.
Did you beat him every time?
yeah,
I mean, there's I did have some good success when I was younger. So that I would say I was pretty confident back then, and I was pretty confident to going back into MotoAmerica that we'd be able to do pretty well.
man, it's funny you see some of those shots though of Sean. I mean, even when he was in Rookies Cup, and I know you know what we're talking about here, Gabi. He was such a long hair back then, right? Did you look any different? Did you have long hair like that when you were riding back?
No, yeah, he always did have the really long hair, but I was on and off. I actually there was some points where I had some really long hair, and there was some points where I had short hair. I even had a mohawk at one point too. I've actually had pretty crazy and wild hairstyles for a while.
Do you ever go to that bush now where a lot of the guys go and ride?
Yes. So Bushnell is I think we were one of the first people to go there. Like 5 years ago now, actually, I think, or almost 5 years ago, something like that. Yeah, it's been a while. And I hadn't been on a supermoto for a while, or really been practicing supermoto like that. I felt like there was a lot more to learn on the bigger tracks. But there was a time where I was doing a lot of flat tracking. So when I was flat tracking, it was actually in Ocala. And those are Saturday night races. So what I would do is we would go Saturday night, go flat tracks. Sunday we would go ride at Jennings, which was not too far away. And then on the drive back down Monday we'd go by Bushnell. And what I would ride at Bushnell would be my 300 in the beginning. And I actually ended up riding my 600 there a couple of times, which was pretty fun. So I had gone to Bushnell, but I never get the chance to ride a supermoto there. It's always a sport bike of some kind.
It's so funny. I mean, we get so many. Obviously, PJ Jacobson goes there a lot, and Sam had been, Ashton Yates. It seems like even Brandon Posh comes down. It's incredible how many guys go on that track, but. You mentioned Jennings too. That's another good one. I had visited that track for the first time this spring when Kale Yakov was there, and they did that piece with the Today Show. And in fact, ironically, I'm wearing my Jennings T-shirt right now. That's the lady that runs that place gave to me. But that's a cool track. I mean, I can understand why it doesn't have an infrastructure to show racing, but it's such a cool track. It's actually pretty long. And you can get some pretty good lap times going there. Have you been on that ZX-10 at Jennings, or have you done any testing on that bike yet?
I haven't been at Jennings in the last couple of years actually, and I haven't been on the ZX-10 just yet. We're just getting it finished this week probably, so we'll be a little late on that, but we're hoping to get a test in or so before the Barber round. Now, yeah, Jennings is one of those tracks where it's a great learning track. I always really enjoy every time we went there. And yeah, Kayla, we've actually met them there and developed a friendship with her and her dad, David, at that track, because they're there like every week. So that is a really good track to practice in and learn. And Bushnell is one of those unique tracks where they have that bridge and everything. So a lot of people like going there and riding. It's a fun layout.
It always reminds me of Caddyshack.
Like
That was
Bushwood.
Bushwood.
That's right. Gabi, you've probably never even seen that movie, have you?
Nope. I don't even know what you're
These
talking
damn
about.
kids.
I know. All right. Well, we're gonna let you go. I mean, thank you for being able to fit in the time with everything you got going on in your job, but also it's, getting this team together. And I mean, it's so cool. We're so happy for you. And the fact that this sounds like an awesome sponsor that fits in so well in our paddock, and not from a point of view of an industry sponsor. It's kind of outside the industry, but it's a product and a service that they make and provide that all of us would love to have. I mean, everybody would love to have a steel building to put our toys in. So it's real cool. But that's Steel Commander Corporation. And so the announcement that as of now that this podcast is live, the announcement's going out about this. And really, congratulations, Gabriel, putting this together. I mean, you're going to be number 71 on a Kawasaki ZX-10R. Steel Commander Racing Corporation. And it's funny, in the press release, they said you're the first member of the Steel Commander Cavalry. So I kind of like that. So really, congratulations. And, thanks for being on with us.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm really happy for the opportunity, and I'm glad to be part of the Steel Cavalry, and I'm excited to see you guys soon, in a couple of weeks now, or a week and a half or so.
I have a feeling we may see you in that post-race press conference. It'd be kind of cool.
That would be very cool.
It would be cool. That's the plan.
Yeah. And it's a good place to have it when you come up and go in that nice media center at Barber Motorsports Park, right? You get up there in that nice, cool building there, and you get to talk to Paul. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes his day.
Nah, it's cool. Barber is actually, I mean, you guys know it's probably the most beautiful track and layout and structure that they have there out of just about all the tracks we go to, I think.
Yeah,
we
awesome.
love that place. Yeah. Anyway, thanks again, Gabriel. Paul, good to talk to you. We knocked another one out, and we'll be ready to do another podcast in a couple days here. So thanks, everybody.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.